the fact that India is becoming more and more urban is good news in the sense of combating climate change.
The existential challenge posed by global warming is undiminished. Failure to significantly reduce emissions in the next decade will make it near impossible to live up to the goals of the Paris Agreement.
I would say that Slovakia is very much in innovations and new technologies and would like to cooperate with India.
When we talk about smart development or when we talk about digital transformation, it's not only about technology, it's about how we can include our people in a democratic...
Urbanization is a complex task. And even though it is a complex task, it is equally has a powerful potential for a social, political, and economic discourse of the country. Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you, all of you here. I know there is a sound coming from back. I hope it will not disturb you, and you are able to hear me loud and clear. Excellencies on the dais, all the distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to pay my sincere gratitude to the organizers, providing me an opportunity to moderate this high-profile or high-powered panel. I'm a little nervous, but I hope I will be able to moderate this session as per the expectations of the audience as well as the organizers. Looking at the profile of the excellencies and representatives of different countries, I strongly can say now that they are not only the ambassadors of the countries they represent, but they are also the ambassadors of good urbanization, who believe that battle for sustainable development will be won or lost in cities. So I again, on behalf of organizers and National Institute of Urban Affairs, welcome all of you to deliver this session. We all know, and I'll not get into the figures because figures are really, really difficult to digest and understand. But and I see faces, familiar faces also, audience. I don't need to tell them what is the challenges of urbanization. But I think we all believe urbanization is a complex task, and even though it is a complex task, it is equally has a powerful potential for a social, political, and economic discourse of the country. This is a very complex web of many subsystems. So urbanization is not a one system, it has too many subsystems, and we need to manage them in an integrated manner. There are water systems, there are transport systems, land use systems, health systems, education systems, sanitation systems, waste systems, energy systems, safety and security systems, and host of other systems. These need to understand from the engineering point of view, finance point of view, economics point of view, human behavior point of view, and several other disciplines you have to get integrated it. So managing cities, and that's why the topic of today, global perspective on sustainable smart city and vision for development. I particularly feel managing cities is a very, very difficult, and I'm being here now 25 years in this profession, and have been also witnessing 3 or 4 large missions happening in India. There is a lot of challenges. But among all these challenges which we have, and particularly talking about India, the complexities and scale which we have, still we have been having this type of workshop is also managing one of the subsystems of the city. So we have been able to do, we are celebrating 75th year of our independence, and I think journey of 75th year with now thinking that 50% of India will be urbanized, is also talking about what should be the new way of looking at it. And that is what we want to learn from each other, because none of us has any magic mantra to resolve, and it has to come up with a lot of discussions here. While this topic on sustainable smart cities, I think all of us, we keep up our hand on our chest, and we will say, first let's define sustainable, define smart, and then start defining cities. Because all of us has our own skepticism, and I am also a bit skepticism of 25 years of my career here. But I'm looking at, while we have different subsystems, while we are talking about it, right now the way we look at it, and some of my speakers, they will agree on it, we will look at it, from where the funding coming from. And I'm being as honest as candid. If the funding is coming from the resilience end, we say resilient smart cities. When the funding starts coming off from the children lens, we say child smart cities. We can use anything. The basic remains is managing the cities. So I was looking at the definition today morning, what is the sustainable smart city? And I came across a UN definition which said, a smart sustainable city is an innovative city that uses ICT and other means to improve quality of life, efficiency of urban operations and services, and competitiveness, while ensuring that it meets the need of present and future generations with respect to economic, social, environmental, as well as cultural aspects. I won't spend time of decoding this definition, because decoding this definition will itself take time. I'll leave it to the eminent speakers who will be talking about how they have decoded this within their respective countries, and how we can learn from each other. But from, again, my experiences, I think 5 key factors which we all are, or 6 key factors which all are talking about, is the whole demographic shift. We are becoming more urban. India was 30, we are preparing 50. Rural-urban migration and other issues are happening. Then if this is going to be the new urban, or new way of looking at it, then question is, do we have institutional strengths at the urban local level, the models of managing this urban local bodies, the cities at a local level? Do we have those institutions? What type of models of institutions we should have? So what is that integrated governance model we should look at? And if we can learn that lesson. We all talk about COP26, climate, and climate has become another buzzword. Everything can be climate. Even this, I can say this conference is climate friendly because this has a bottle like this. But so that even this is a climate gathering here we are having. We can link anything. But if climate, what we talk about, we are talking about COP26 and 40,000 level. Our urban cities understand the language at 1,000. What we are trying to do in Indian context, if I think in Indian roads you want to run a Ferrari, which will not happen. So how do you, what is that climate governance systems you require to look at it? What is the word convergence, which is very easy to talk about, but very difficult to actually implement? So the convergence models coming from this different knowledge from the different countries, we'll be very happy to understand. Third is, we all talk about inclusivity. Everything has to be inclusive, citizen engagement, people friendly. And I am right now working on a master plan Delhi 2041. I'm not talking about merits, demerits of master plan, but looking at a planning document. I challenge if even a common citizen can pick up that planning document and understand what it means for himself. So people friendly will be like, how can we have that document which can be understood? So those lessons, what type of planning documents, how do we improve on a planning exercise? These should not be just a documents which I keep on my shelf and everything. I go my home and tell my children, keeping things. I am giving you a vision of 20 years. You will have a big life. And my children he'll look at me and say, take a walk, Papa. So that's not should be there. We all talk about technologies because we all understand that we need to move away from data, we need to move from governance-driven data to data-driven governance. And if that is the shift, what type of technology we need to really have? What is that we need to really learn from the countries which are there on the dais? Second thing, outcome-oriented. We need to really look at how do we, look at impacts for accountability, impacts for, what we achieved. How do we really monitor the impacts? And when we can. So whole monitoring frameworks or monitoring outcomes, how should we look at it? Then, right now we make 20 years plan. The way changing a 20-year plan, it's like a wish given to think that 2041 you will have a long life, and that's it. But these are big motherly statements which all of us can make, but how will you really make them much more dynamic, much more flexible? How do you get a feedback loop integrated in the planning process? Those are the areas where I think, as a thing, need to be really thought about while moving this, and I call it taking that leap towards the transformation. We all agree and we say that cities of engines of economic growth, but I personally feel that engines of economic growth will only work if the fuel comes from the angle of sustainability and inclusiveness. Engine of economic growth without a fuel from sustainable and inclusive angle will not run, and we will be doing a business as usual approach. So, and I also agree that there is no magic mantra or a recipe with us. It has to come up from 5 C's, which is collaboration, cooperation, convergence, conversation, and co-creation. These 5 C's have to be the main area, and that is why this session is going to take place, talk about how do we collaborate, how do we co-create, how do we cooperate with each other to bring at least have a peer-to-peer learning, exchange our ideas, and deliberate on this, because these issues has to be deliberated, designed, and then implemented. You can't just spark and say that business as usual approach will not work, we will do another approach, but what is that new approach going to be? That has to be discussed. India has already started looking at some of these things. We have, during the COVID, our policy leaders gave us 3 things: that India have to be 5 trillion economy. India has to talk about vocal the local as well as sustainable India. And we have started looking at it from our urban missions. We have 5 urban missions which are talking about bringing basic infrastructure. We are talking about national infrastructure pipeline, which is talking about connectivity. We are also talking about strengthening and empowering urban local bodies through giving a financial empowerment. And our Honorable Finance Minister during the budget speech, first time, and I am very happy that first time urban planning, the cities need a planning and move away from the business as usual approach, and planning becomes the starting point, was raised in the parliament. And she did talk about that planning cannot continue with a business as usual approach, but I think that has to be thought about. So while the ambassadors and representative countries, they will talk about, I have 4 issues while they talk about their keynote addresses. The 4 challenges which all of us has to really thought about is how do you, human capital is the fulcrum of any city. So how do you bring people at the center of the discussion, at the planning process? People should not be just giving a plan to outside and say that your feedback is required, and then after that walk away from it. So one of the area where we will look at it. And again, we don't, this era of convergence and collaboration and cooperation has come. How do you really implement it? So what is this new age collaboration will look like? And how do you bridge the gap and create these platforms which can help this cooperation with different players and different activities within the countries? Then third thing is, who will do it? It has to be institutions at the local level. So how do you capacitate those institutions at the local level with the skills, with the knowledge, with the best practices, and how we can learn from each other? And lastly, which is how do you make it accountable for the impacts, not accountable for the process, but accountable for the process. So I look forward to deliberations. We will have each speaker talking about their, their perspective on how we can learn from each other, how we can share our knowledge with each other, what strengths we look at it. It's not only what we learn from them, what India has also done from last 75 years, and what India has a lot to offer now, because the complex and scale which we have managed, I think the time has come for us also to celebrate our own successes rather than being too harsh on ourselves. So that's the area where we will be looking at. So immediately I'll request each speaker will have 5 to 7 minutes to give his keynote address, and then if time permits, we can have one round of panel discussion, and then we will have one report which KPMG as a knowledge partner has done. We will talk about that a little bit, and then we'll close the session. So with that, I request my first keynote speaker, who is Ms. Dr. Stephan Grabherr, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Federal Republic of Germany, to give his first key remarks. And Mr. Grabherr is, PhD in modern history from University of Freiburg. Prior to his current role, he was Director General for Economic Affairs at the Federal Foreign Ministry and Mission at the Embassy of Tokyo, and he brings a lot of, mainly on the climate issues, mainly on sustainability, brings a lot of knowledge on the platform, and a lot of his work has been on the climate issue. So I'll ask him to. Okay, Mr. Grabherr. I'm sorry, I just missed it.
German.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very lively discussion and taken by surprise, because but very happy. Thank you very much for having us. You already covered a lot of ground here. I think this is very important. And yeah, where should I start? And I think I just have a look at your panel you have here. You have different topics on the wall here, and when I look at it, first of all, and that's very crucial for our cooperation, that's transport. Green urban mobility is one of our center points of our cooperation with India, and that not only covers transport among different regions, but of course it's focused on urban transport, because if you want to live in a smart city, you have to have affordable, accessible transport. And I think in this context, in metropolitan areas, and you have a lot of metropolitan areas here in India, not only big cities, but metropolitan areas, I think urban transport, green urban transport, and sustainable and affordable urban transport is a key topic. And therefore, I'm also very happy that we have with us representatives from the Germany Trade and Invest. That's a German institution who is promoting trade and invest, and Bavaria International. Bavaria International, that's from one region in Germany, and we have several cities in these regions that are really smart and can do a lot in transport and urban mobility. So I'm very happy to focus on this and to tell you that we have to move forward in urban mobility, green urban mobility, social, affordable, and accessible. Perhaps as a first remark. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it seems to be working. So good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Vaidya, and all the organizers for this event and having invited me. And I would also like to thank to be in the presence of the excellencies from different countries. I would just like to make my my remarks here first on the very high level, going down to the smart cities and what we are doing in India. But to start, I would like just to make the point that we are still very much focused on COVID, and it's whether we have really vanquished it or whether we still have to fight it for a longer period of time, and what the economic fallout is and how we are going to address it. But at the same time, this pandemic has also made it very clear that human well-being is very much interlinked with the environment. And so the stimulus policies that our different economies are trying to set up to recover from the economic slump should also reflect this fact, and that they should be designed that we do not compromise the low carbon transition for the years to come. The existential challenge posed by global warming is undiminished. Failure to significantly reduce emissions in the next decade will make it near impossible to live up to the goals of the Paris Agreement. This is why the EU has pledged to become climate neutral by 2050. Achieving climate neutrality will transform economies profoundly. But crucially, there is no contradiction between growth and climate action, as borne out by Europe's decoupling experience. From 1990 to 2019, we have cut emissions by 23%, whilst growing economically by 60%. Of course, the transition to climate neutrality requires massive investments, which will be recouped by later savings. The costs of many clean solutions have come down tremendously, and they are labor-intensive, creating jobs. Now we have this new EU Global Gateway, which is our new strategy to boot smart, clean, and secure links in digital, energy, and transport globally. The EU Global Gateway is a template how Europe can build more resilient connections with the world. The EU Global Gateway stands for sustainable and trusted connections that work for people and the planet in order to tackle the most pressing global challenges. To achieve our global objectives in fighting climate change, our partnership with India is essential. And cities are responsible for 70% of global CO2 emissions, with transport, buildings, energy, and waste management accounting for the urban greenhouse gas emissions. And in India, a rapid urbanization is taking place with an expected urban population at 570 million by 2030, and the projection for 2050 that more than 50% of the Indians will live in cities. Such rapid urbanization brings challenges like providing basic services to people like safe drinking water, wastewater treatment, sanitation, housing, urban mobility, and solid waste management. But such rapid urbanization is also an opportunity for an urban transformation which promotes smart and sustainable urbanization. At the EU level, the urban agenda for the EU represents a multi-level working method promoting cooperation between EU member states, cities, the European Commission, and other stakeholders in order to stimulate growth and livability in cities and hence contribute towards sustainable urbanization. And the new European Urban Initiative for EU 27 placed cities in the front when delivering solutions on sustainable urbanization. And to achieve our global objectives, our partnership on smart and sustainable urbanization between the EU and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs of the Government of India is important in this regard. This partnership between the EU and India promotes investments in sustainable urbanization, for example, by promoting city climate action and disaster risk reduction. It also deals with very practical challenges, such as effective solid waste management, developing effective water supply, and sewage systems. And it deals with mainstreaming urban resilience into metropolitan planning. As an example of best practices for national and international collaboration, let me mention the EU-funded International Urban and Regional Cooperation Program. The program for India was launched in February this year. Through this urban and regional cooperation program, we aim to not only strengthen cooperation with India on sustainable urban development, but also to involve Indian and European cities, which together can demonstrate the role of cities in finding solutions in the areas including urban challenges, urban resilience, and urban mobility. And I would also like to mention a concrete example, the Surat Water Plaza, developed under the previous EU International Urban Cooperation Project with India, where the city-to-city cooperation between Surat in Gujarat and Rotterdam from the Netherlands is an excellent example of dealing with issues of urban water challenges and urban resilience. And this project was also showcased at the India Pavilion at the London Design Biennale in June 2021. The India Pavilion curation work aspired to map and highlight all stories and ideas from India for a sustainable and resilient future. And just as a last example, also our cooperation with India extends to the EU-funded project on support of Global Covenant of Mayors in Asia with 23 cities in India as signatories. And this concludes my first remarks of the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seppo Nurmi. We are working quite a bit with the European Union and others, so, and we know a lot of support which is coming up. So thanks. Next we have His Excellency Robert Maxian, Ambassador Designate, Embassy of Slovak Republic. Ambassador Maxian has a postgraduate diploma in international trade from the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi, and MSc in Economic and International Trade from the University of Economics, Bratislava. He has previously worked as a counselor and deputy head of mission embassy of the Slovak Republic in Hungary. He has also been the head of Asia and Pacific Department and deputy head of the mission in South Korea. His Excellency, over to you, please.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Even I didn't know these details, like you have mentioned. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to come to India back after generally 13 years, and it is connected also this exhibition because it's my first entry and as an ambassador designate. I can see the big steps India is making and made in the last 13 years since I have departed last time. And I would say the proof of that is that we have with us the Slovak pavilion, which is in fact in completely different areas than I used to promote in the past. Generally, we have been mostly in type of heavy technologies, iron ore, metals, bauxite, etc. But now also Slovakia is making a lot of diversification towards the smart cities, towards the innovation, ICT, and we have good examples of our cooperation. At the outset, I just wanted to say that like company Asset, maybe you don't know, but company Asset is a Slovak company which is ensuring that your PCs, desktops are working properly for the antivirus program. We also produce, as one of the countries in the world, the Aeromobile, which is the flying flying car generally, and it has made already several trials. We are also having the Spina, which is company producing special bearings for the robotics. So I would say that Slovakia is very much in innovations and new technologies, and would like to cooperate with India. On the other hand, we are also industrial base. I don't know whether you know, but Slovakia is producing 1.2 million cars per year with a population of 5 million people and the size of the Punjab. But India is producing 4 million cars per year, you know, with 1.4 billion population. So you can see that we have a large and industrial base. Of course, we are the part of the EU, Eurozone, and Schengen area, and we are having direct touch and approach to millions and 300 millions of the potential customers within the radius of 1,000 kilometers. Of course, we are having 516 R&D organizations in Slovakia, and 45% of Slovak employees are working in the high-tech manufacturing and knowledge-intensive service. I just want to say also that attracting the FDI and falling the unemployment rate, we are facing the shortage of the labor, which we are trying to now to solve the problem in connection with the crisis from migration crisis from the Ukraine. Of course, many of you would ask me, what can we do, what can we trade, and how can be our interaction? I just want to say there is no particular list of the items to be traded or to be discussed. We have to be innovative, and we have to be very creative, and we should not limit ourselves. But generally, Slovak looks for the industrial automation, robotization, renewable energies, waste management, then innovation in agri-sector, defense, mining, and also health sector. As a good practice, and also making and arranging for the safety of your cities, I would like to mention the company Microstep from Slovakia, which has developed in India a big project of the airport weather stations, which is the sophisticated project, and they have established their liaison office in Bangalore, in Karnataka, and they also are now penetrating to other countries in the South Asian region, to Bangladesh, to Sri Lanka, Nepal, etc. So we would like to continue with this, and of course, I am having with me a Slovak delegation, night companies, and also the SARIO, as an organization which is involved in promotion of trade and investment. I would like to call you, please visit them and discuss. In this field, I would like to highlight the project of company SAC, which is already doing the pilot projects in Bombay, in the lighting and industrial lighting and city lighting for the city of Bombay. So thank you very much for the first entry.
Thank you, His Excellency. Now we have His Excellency Aranha Correa do Lago. His Excellency has been Brazil's ambassador to India since December 2018. He has also been Brazil's ambassador to the Kingdom of Bhutan since January 2019. And he is graduated from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in 1983. As a diplomat, he has held functions in Brasilia in areas such as trade promotion, international organization, protocol, sustainable development, energy, and climate change. Abroad, he was previously Brazil's ambassador to Japan. And he has served mission to the European Union in Brussels, as well as at the Brazilian embassy in Buenos Aires, Washington, D.C., Prague, and Madrid. He is a you know, he is the author of series of book, and I have been following him for quite some time, and I'm a real, I won't say that just a follower, I'm also admirer of your work, particularly on your development and architecture, because my career, I was just talking, started with a work with an architect called Christopher Benninger, and I was groomed up, so he was my mentor, so I follow you up, sir. And I know you will provoke this silent gathering quite a bit with your remarks, so over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to tell you that I'm very happy to be here today for many reasons, because as was kindly mentioned by Mr. Vaidya, I have different lives with, as Brazilian ambassador, as climate change that I've worked many years, and in architecture and urbanism, where I have an action, a parallel action. I'm a member, for instance, of the jury of the Pritzker Prize. So I'm going to talk to you today very, very objectively about some key words that I would like you to remember. First, on the Brazilian experience that you asked for us to talk about our experiences. I think that although Brazil is very much famous for Brasilia, which was the ultimate tabula rasa urban experience, the fact is that at the UN and in other debates like in this event here, the key city in Brazil is called Curitiba, which is considered by the United Nations as the first sustainable and probably could be called today smart city in the developing world. So the experience of Brazil regarding India, I think is interesting in basically two elements. First is that Brazil, like India, have the challenges of wealth, because we have many rich people, we have a very large middle class, but also we have the challenges of poverty. So this experience is something that we share. But the great difference between Brazil and India in the context of this discussion is the fact that Brazil is today already 87% urban, while India is below 50%. And this urbanization, which has happened in Brazil in a very quick way and in a very disorderly way, has brought many negative consequences. But at the same time, we all know that to combat climate change, which is a major priority for all of us, we know that urban density is essential. So the fact that India is becoming more and more urban is good news in the sense of combating climate change. But this quick urbanization, unfortunately, has created, as well in Brazil as in India, more inequalities, very complicated neighborhoods, informal settlements. And that's where I want you to remember a key name, which is the man who made Curitiba a relevant city for sustainability and for smart cities, Jaime Lerner. Lerner is probably the most influential urban thinker of the last 30 years. He unfortunately died last year. But Lerner had at least 30 great ideas that were adopted by many cities. And one of them that is very real in India is the bus rapid transit, BRT, that I have seen in Ahmedabad, I've seen in Bhopal, in many other Indian cities. The first bus rapid transit comes from Brazil. What is the great thing about BRT is that it's infinitely more affordable than other kinds of transportation and was adopted from developing countries to Singapore. I want to mention also that the debate about what is sustainability, and I think that you did a very good presentation about that in the beginning. The smart city is, first of all, a city that does something that is feasible, that's something that they can afford, as my German colleague was mentioning before. So sustainability is about three things that we can never forget, which is the environmental dimension, the social dimension, and the economic dimension. And I believe that the great progress that we had in recent years is that international debate has switched from central governments to city governments. And I believe that the results can be seen in a very stimulating way, like the experiences that were mentioned by my colleagues. But I would like to, apart from mentioning the experience of my country, I would like to mention in the context of this event the two most recent winners of the Pritzker Prize, which is considered the Nobel Prize of Architecture. One is a French couple, Lacaton et Vassal. What is their great achievement? Is that in whatever project they receive, they don't destroy anything. So it is a very, very special kind of architecture that they have developed, and I would love if you would investigate more about them, Lacaton et Vassal. So because they deal with the issue of construction waste. Construction waste is one of the most underestimated but extremely important problem for climate change. And Lacaton et Vassal, whatever project they have, they use the structure that existed before, or they simply don't interfere. And the most recent one that was announced this month, Francis Kéré, who is from Burkina Faso. And Francis Kéré has made extraordinary projects in Africa, in other regions also, but essentially in Burkina Faso, where he comes from, in an extremely smart, sustainable, and incredibly cheap architecture and urban intervention. So these are the words that I would like you to remember today on my presentation is Lerner, the Brazilian urbanist, Lacaton et Vassal, the French architects, and Francis Kéré, the Burkina Faso architect that won the Pritzker Prize this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looking at the time and others, I know there is a lot the people have to do, but you know what I particularly think we will have one round of questions right now, and then we move forward. And you know, because this discussion it provokes a lot of areas. But you know, for us in India, how do you really start walking the talk? How do you move away from this cooperation to a knowledge to application? And also, how do you, you know, if the way you were talking and all of you have talked about that there are available tools, there are available templates, there are available technologies, there are training and capacity building areas, and there is a transfer of knowledge. So if these 5 T's are going to be the platform for exchange, as a National Institute of Urban Affairs, I'm ready to anchor this for a smart and urban cities, and I can commit it. But my question to all of you, one by one, and you can have, start from my left onwards, is that quickly, based on the discussion, what are the key strengths that your country can bring, particularly in the context of sustainable and smart cities, to India, and what do you think India has to offer based on your knowledge of India here, that what is that one thing India can offer, and how this exchange platform, if really can be anywhere, knowledge can be given, and then, because right now it's only supply side, but also, as somebody pointed out, demand also has to come up. So as an IUA, as a National Institute of Urban Affairs, a think tank, I am ready to be that honest broker between the cities and the international knowledge platform, and work that exchange. So my request from the left is, can we have 3 things which you think you have to offer among these tools, technologies, and 3 things which India can really work with you to offer its own expertise now.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Yeah, if I can start, of course, the European Union is not a country. So
Yeah,
we
that's
represent, represent for different areas, we represent 27 very diverse and rich and important countries. So I think that what we can offer here, a bit particular, the European delegation in India, we can offer access to these programs, which really, unfortunately, when we go to the practical, concrete issues, we have to actually we have to use these tools, and maybe sometimes they may appear very bureaucratic. But the advantage of these programs, we are running the smart and sustainable urbanization and the urban regional cooperation program, that we can provide access to Indian partners directly to very different players in 27 different EU member states. And actually, we are in constant talks with different players from different Indian states, and that's, I think that it is important just to start the contacts. Normally it is run by the first point of contact for any Indian city is the state government in your government. But if you want to have more information about these EU programs and how we do the partnerships with India, then the easiest way is just to look at our delegation website. We have also their dedicated links to the smart cities and urban development. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
His Excellency.
Thank you very much. Very objectively on your question, what has to be offered, I think it's information. What is really lacking is a very clear way, and I think that maybe you can help in that sense. The examples that city administrators can go to and see things that fit into their budgets, into their size, etc., etc. What India can offer, I think India can offer something that is unique, which is scale. With the number of people you have, with the opportunities that your country is offering, almost any idea is feasible thanks to the scale. So this is something that is a bit incompatible, maybe one thing with the other, because we're talking about local issues and I'm talking about a larger scale. But the fact is that a good idea in another country, like in my country, like the BRT that I mentioned, when you bring it to India and you succeed to convince enough people about it, you can have a scale that make everything affordable. The technologies exist, the methodologies exist, the knowledge exists, but I come back to my first comment. The biggest difficulty is information. So sometimes, be it a project with whichever country or entity that is here represented, the fact is that we have to be able to inform in a way that the projects work, because there are solutions, there are answers, and they are available. So I'm an eternal optimist, but I think that the more we know about the good examples, the more we can achieve extraordinary things between our countries. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm taking an apology and ask one supplement question to you. To you, His Excellency, because I was just going through, and you have you are investing $100 billion for social housing in your country, for social housing. Yeah, and India is also doing a housing for all program. I just wanted to a little bit understand, because one of the areas that what I particularly think India really needs is how do you come up with the governance models within the city. Yeah. So, one of the area which I think we can learn, and such a big housing issues and your whole housing challenge which you have trying to manage, is there something for a housing sector in India to learn from yours?
Well, yes, including lots of mistakes. I think that social housing has been one of the most disastrous sectors in architecture and urbanism all over the world. But we learn from the mistakes. And I think when I come back now to Jaime Lerner that I mentioned, he has created the concept of urban acupuncture. What is it? Is that instead of trying, to take away people and put them far away and build these new neighborhoods that are very difficult to reach and have no infrastructure, you have to work on the city and the place that exists and increase density. And urban acupuncture, what does it mean? If you have an intervention in a neighborhood, it's going to have consequences on the other neighborhoods, like an acupuncture, like when we do some acupuncture. So we have to, modest interventions, this is the great lesson. Modest interventions can have an extraordinary effect on the cities, on the neighborhood, and on the community. So I believe that the greater lesson we have is don't take away people from where they are. Transform the areas that you find difficult into neighborhoods. This is the new line, I think, of urbanism that should be done, that is being done in São Paulo, in Rio, in other cities. And we have to stop with that idea that we have to transfer people to places that they don't want to live. You have to make the place where they live a more livable space. That, I think, is the experience.
Thank you very much. Now I move to His Excellency Robert Maxian for your remarks.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for your question. The question was very valid, actually. How can we boost our cooperation and come closer? I said that we should utilize the high level of the political dialogue, should serve to boost our connection in research and development, and science and technology, in innovations, in trade, investments. It was already said that we should also look, in some of the speeches, that we should also look to the various states in India, not just to the Delhi. We should not limit ourselves. So we should be thinking in the long term and wise what, say, Tamil Nadu is doing, what Karnataka is doing, what Madhya Pradesh is doing, Bihar, what are their, the intentions in this area we are just discussing. And thirdly, we should also use all the platform, like even today's platform, to interact and know each other better. Slovaks and Indians are very friendly countries. We have the many similarities in our languages. Dvara is dvere, sukhe is sukhe. So so we should know each other culturally. We should know each other personally, and naturally this kind of platform organize the events and to business delegations, to each other countries, and to interact. So also I would like to call the Indian delegation in this segment to participate in the Slovak process. I call on Indian investors to participate in the investment process in Slovakia. We have good examples already. We have company Tata Consultancy Services, which is a company who works in research and development. So please check up the Slovak business environment and talk to our organization Sario, and they will guide you. And please interact and come, and we should definitely make our cities and our cooperation better. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I move to Dr. Stephan Grabherr, please, for his remarks? Dr. Stephan?
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more on what my colleague said. I just would like to underline that when we talk about smart developments or when we talk about digital transformation, it's not only about technology. It's about how we can include our people in a democratic way, how can people really participate in what we offer in our digital transformation. So that holds true for buildings, for example, and what we can learn from each other is sometimes we have similar problems in Germany, in our big cities. Housing and affordability of housing is a big problem, and that's a challenge for many other cities. So we have to find solutions in there. And when we look again at transport, Germany is very committed as far as transport here in India, clean, sustainable transport is concerned. I think this is also a key sector where we can show that people are important. It's not only about technology, it's not only technological driven, but it's human-centered. And I think we should never keep this out when we talk about something is smart. We are smart when we include our people. And meaning when we want to include our people, what we see from our experience here in India, we see such a motivation, such an enthusiasm for moving things forward and for committing itself. And therefore I think it's also very important in this process and when we realize projects to include women in these projects, because we see when we have a broad inclusiveness, our projects and our cooperation will excel to a better level, and therefore we want to move forward in this direction. Germany and India in our development cooperation, we have around about 1 billion every year. The highest amount is about financial support, for example, for subway, metro transport in Gujarat, in other places, or electrifying urban mobility. And another part is technical cooperation. But when we are cooperating in these different fields, inclusiveness and being smart being in the sense of including people is a key objective for our cooperation. And I think we all should be smart, include our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all of you. And I think this is a very fruitful discussion, but I think we should, this discussion should, as I told earlier, should not just end with a discussion and we all go out and have a cup of coffee, but how do we take it forward and make it actionable for the future to come. And in this regard, I think it has to have a cooperation, convergence, and particularly conversation of ideas, which has actually happened here. I think that is the starting point to really put on the table and discuss what are the areas where we can learn and work together for the future. In this regard, I think when we are moving from, we are reaching 75th year of our independence, and now we are looking at next 25 years of horizon, when we will be 100 years of horizon by 2047. Our colleague and a knowledge partner for this event, KPMG, Mr. Puneet Narang, they have already developed a vision for these things. And I like that vision exercise, Puneet, is because, the whole idea is if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. So I think this is, unless we start planning now what we will be 25 years when we achieve 100 and 2047, I may not be there, but I don't want my next generation to tell what my father left behind is a bad planet. You know, I want them to feel proud that what they inherited was not a messy urbanization of India, which World Bank came, but we have moved much far away, and we are giving a better life, quality of life, better standard of living, and better connectivity to them. And with that hope, over to you, Puneet. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Vaidya. I think this was such an enriching, conversation between all the senior dignitaries on the stage that for some time I just wanted to keep quiet and absorb all that was being shared. And I must compliment each one of you, for taking the time out and sharing your views, firstly to start with. Now, if I may add, taking cue from what Mr. Vaidya said, we are at that cusp right now, and it boils down to leaving a legacy. What is it that I would leave? What is it that you would leave for your generations going ahead? We in India will complete 75 years of our independence this year. By 2047, we would be close to 1.64 billion people. The most populous country on this planet. Probably we'll cross that in 27. And of that, 2027, we'll cross that, overcoming China. But of that 1.64 billion, 50% would be living in urban India. And that rapid urbanization, which we heard about issues around social housing, I remember being to Sao Paulo in 2010-11, the favelas and the issues that, if you remove the lines between the countries, are very human. They are very, very common. But with that said, there are nuances that each country, a country like India has, which is unlike any other. So how do you apply the learnings that we've seen across the European Union, across Brazil, across some of the other regional areas which have developed to the Indian context becomes very, very critical. We at KPMG have taken an initial stab, given the work that we do across governments as well as private sector players and working on the ground. How do you translate this into a frame, whether it's about climate change and responses coming to the center, whether it's about last mile connectivity? While we are investing significantly in our infrastructure, what does it mean to the citizen, to the last person for his or her experiences? What do you deal with when you walk into this exceptional hall? What am I experiencing in terms of my interactions with my built environment? I think those are areas which become extremely critical. And in our attempt, in our report, which we are going to be releasing right now, we have attempted to bring, and some of those lenses were talked about. I'll just reiterate them one more time. We spoke about how financial, the economic aspect is extremely critical. Where will you fund all of this from? And there is capital available. How do you attract that right kind of capital is going to be important. Environment is going to be critical. Not just climate resilience, but our ability to have disaster response management strategies. Because increasingly we will have, we've seen the wildfires in California and Australia. We are seeing the flooding situation. We are seeing extreme droughts. Just, I think it was day before yesterday, I read about insane 35 or 40 degrees temperatures in Antarctica in a small zone. And I couldn't believe that. So it's upon us, and it's upon our next generations, and it's for us to now take that preemptive action. So I spoke about environment, about finance. The next important element is going to be around technology. It will have to be data-driven. And we have ample, we've taken those initial strides when we look at our Smart Cities program. Good, bad, ugly, we have put in place those IoT devices, those sensors, whether it's for traffic management or health services or utilities, we are beginning to get those feeds. And now they need to be translated into improved decision making. So data-driven governance and those feedback loops are available with us to take better decisions. So tech is going to be at the heart of it. And last but not the least, the social lens, which for us in India is extremely critical, because unlike many of the Western regions or countries, we have thousands of years of history and culture. Each one of our cities, if we don't revive the soul, then it'll remain distant and it will not be sustainable. So for it to be sustainable, we must identify the soul, which comes from the people, the traditions, the vocations, and how they interplay with the built environment that we have. So using those lenses, we have put a humble attempt and got this document readied, envisioning urban India, which I would request the dignitaries and Hitesh now to release for the audience gathered here. Thank you so much, Hitesh. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we release, may I also invite Chandrika Bahel, the Managing Director of Exhibitions India Group, to please join us. And if Dhruv Behel, the Director, Exhibitions India. May I request both of you to please join. So this book being released is the KPMG Thought Leadership on Envisioning Urban India at 2047. Select imperatives and catalysts lighted here. What should be the roadmap for the country in urban development? May I request all of you to please release the book. Yeah, if you can, yes. So what should be the roadmap for India in urban development for the next 25 years? So thanking Dr. Stephan Grabherr, thank you. Thank you to His Excellency Robert Maxian. Thanking His Excellency Lago. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Excellency Seppo Nurmi. Thank you to our moderator, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya. Thank you. Okay, another group photograph for our, for our records, capturing all of you in the camera.